Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. We're so excited that you're here.
Another day, another guest.
Another guest.
Very excited. Today we have Chelsea Stevens with us. And I know Chelsea from many years ago. We won't go all the way back.
Yeah.
But it started in youth group. Let's
Yeah.
put it that
Yeah.
way. And we're not
Youth
there
group.
anymore. We are not there. Now we're married, children, all the things. But Chelsea, I would love for you to introduce yourself a little bit, your background. Today is all going to be about interior design, which I adore.
Yeah.
Interior
So
design. We love
if
it.
you would take it away and kind of share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, my name's Chelsea Stevens, and currently I am home with my 3 kids, homeschooling them for this year. We'll see.
That is the challenge right
You're
there.
so brave. You're so brave.
And then on the side, I'm doing design projects here and there and things like that I just have always loved doing design. And so I'm home with my 3 kids doing design on the side. My husband works at our local church and so really involved in that as well. And so design is really what I love, even since I was probably 8 years old, moving my room around because I couldn't handle it anymore and putting up weird things on the wall and all of that kind of stuff.
I love that. I feel
I've
like that's
always
a
loved
tall tale sign.
Telltale.
Oh, no.
It's a telltale.
It's a sign.
It's a sign.
It's a sign.
When
You're
you love to
destined
do it
for
as a
this.
kid and you're doing it as an
Oh,
adult,
yeah.
that means
Yes.
you've really nailed it.
Oh, I
in my
love
100%.
opinion.
I love it.
Explain to us kind of what that looks like when you go into someone's home. Like, how does your design services come out and about?
Yeah.
How does your brain work?
Yeah.
Oh, a lot.
Maybe that's a different podcast.
Can of worms.
Yeah. So really, I mean, one of the services that I offer is a walkthrough service. So what I do is I connect with a client or they reach out to me. They say, hey, I really need help in my master bedroom and my kitchen. And I'm really needing some ideas and things like that. You know, they're not really looking for me to come in and give them an entire like full service design plan of like where to change your whole kitchen.
Right.
But they're really just needing like maybe some hard finishes or like a picture here and there.
Just
different
advice to
rug.
pull it together.
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. Just some areas where nothing is there.
Yeah.
And if there's a design opportunity there. So I come in, they'll send me pictures beforehand. We set up like an hour and a half meeting and I walk through, we talk through all of the ideas that I've kind of compiled together based on just the pictures that they sent.
Yeah.
And if anything else in my brain pops up while I'm in the actual space, then so we just talk through all of those things. At the end, I give them all of the inspiration pictures that we talked through. If there's paint suggestions, like colors, those kinds of things, and send them in an email to them and say, see you later.
I love that.
Good
I
luck.
love that.
I know.
Right? How much
do you,
fun is that?
Do you ask them like what styles they prefer? Do you kind of get
Yeah, I do, and I do like to know as well, like the architecture of the home, because that's a really big deal of like keeping those things cohesive.
Marry them together a
Yeah.
bit.
So
Okay, so I think I would love to jump in for our broader audience today. What are some like 2024 trends?
current trends?
Yes.
What are,
What are you seeing? What are you suggesting? What's in? What's out? All those
Yeah.
fun things.
yeah, well, I do think that this year seems to be a really unusual year.
Okay.
Because I feel like there's the last couple of years there's been like this one thing, like, you know, like wood slatted walls was really popular. Or, you know, there's like one really big thing. And this year what I'm seeing is that it's more of like a compiling of different design ideas to create a more full design. And that's what I'm seeing when I'm looking through things and seeing other designers that I love, like bringing in a lot of organic elements, but a lot of modern. One of my favorite styles is like a modern Parisian, which sounds like, okay.
Parisian.
But, you know, it's not.
I like the word Parisian.
Me too. It's so fancy.
You know,
I
it
just
is what it
love
is.
Like, I should be wearing a beret. Why am I not wearing a beret?
Also like the word beret. These
Yes,
are good
very
words.
good, very good. And so what that is, it pairs like modern with like a medallion that's real, has a lot of filigree with a really modern like light fixture, and just bringing those two worlds together, I think is really what is coming about this year. So
Interesting.
and,
awesome.
yeah, I would say what's out.
I was gonna ask. I was like,
I'm a little
what's
afraid
out?
Okay.
What's
to know what's out.
dated? Because this happens in fashion too, right?
does,
It's like
it does.
we don't wear skinny jeans anymore, or whatever. And
Which
you're like, what
no,
happened?
I'm thankful for that one.
There's a lot of them are good changes.
Listen,
Yes.
the barrel jean, I cannot get on.
No,
with that
have you
trend, though.
seen the
That's
barrel
not- I
jean?
can't do
They
that.
literally come out.
we,
I'm
we
like,
just
no,
we
it's
have
not.
to get back to like it needs to be flattering
Yeah.
at the
I
same
just-
time.
Classic,
Yes.
timeless.
Just keep
Let's
it
just
classic.
shoot.
Yes.
for
Okay,
Yeah.
but back to it.
Okay.
What's out?
Okay, well, I would say if there is any designer out there that is more like design forward, they're going to say that farmhouse is a cuss word, probably. To me, farmhouse is a cuss word. And
Okay,
it is-
we're no
it-
longer with the sliding barn doors.
You know, I would say
Oh,
no. I would
man.
say opt for a pocket door versus a
Pocket
sliding barn
door.
door.
Pocket
Now, I will say, I do currently have a sliding barn door in my home, but
Right.
that is only because a pocket door will not go on
Right.
either of the walls. So, but there are ways to
Yeah.
modernize those types of things as well with the style and all of that. So,
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do think one of our rooms in this house has barn doors.
hey,
So
it's a thing, and they're in
that's
a
where
lot
we're
of
at right
homes.
now.
And the easy way to update that would be to opt for a glass paned door, or you could go
could be
more like
fun.
vintage with an actual antique door that
Oh,
you
that'd be
can
awesome.
source.
That would
So,
be so
I
much
love
fun.
vintage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of like little things that someone can do, I'm even thinking right now, especially for sellers, right? And or buyers coming in. But if I'm a seller getting ready to list my house, what are little things that I could do to make the house feel maybe a bit more open, more inviting, more updated? And then on the flip side, once we're done answering that, as a buyer coming in and looking at a house, not feeling overwhelmed, thinking, oh my God, I have to change so much. What are little things that they could tweak?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say the easiest things to change that give a huge impact, one would be paint.
Yeah.
And I know white is very popular right now. I mean, white, you can't mess that up, really.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a certain color on the walls, then that's going to deter people from
Yeah.
like knowing that they're going to have to spend money
Yeah.
painting over
and
those.
certain colors like yellow, it makes it look dingy.
Yes,
it makes the
it
space
does.
look smaller in so many ways. So I told my buyers when I'm walking in, I'm like, hey, imagine this with a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah.
This is going to brighten everything up. Sometimes the ceilings are
Yeah.
painted yellow. And I'm like,
That is a problem.
what are you doing? But at
is a
some point in time, at some point in
It
time,
was, you know what?
it
It,
was
should
a
have
trend.
always been a problem, though.
there's
There's
like
a
the skinny
house-
jeans at some point in time.
There's a house 2 like blocks down. It is lime green, and I'm like,
Oh, wow.
whoever thought this was a good idea? Whoever?
Yeah.
I don't
Wow.
understand.
But it does. It makes
Yeah.
a huge difference. I tell my buyers all the time, paint goes a very long way.
Yeah.
Very long way.
For sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
for
paint.
So paint and then light fixtures. So if you have, in a lot of the homes, let's say early 2000s, you're going to see one of those boob lights. And so instead of having
I
the
know
boob light,
exactly
yeah,
what you're talking. Nobody wants to see that.
no
I
one
mean,
needs the boob light.
No, no.
Most of the time, no.
I knew
not
you were
on the
going
live
back.
action.
So
Yeah.
say no to the boob light and just opt for a like recessed can light.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
even just taking things up will also help it feel bigger.
Yeah.
Updating your chandelier in the living room, the dining room, kitchen pendant lights. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities
Yeah.
to one, to make a room exciting with light, but two, to like just clean it up and update it as well. So that's an easy fix for a buyer and a seller.
You know what? Something else I tell my buyers is door handles.
I was
Yes.
just
Door
gonna
handles
mention
and
the
cabinet
door
pulls. The cabinet
Yes,
pull. You can
cabinet
get the
pulls are a
cutest,
huge
the
one.
cutest ones, and it changes everything.
huge
Yes.
I'm like, you don't
difference.
necessarily need to repaint all of your cabinets, you
Yeah.
might just need to put new poles on.
Yeah.
I also like putting poles on cabinets that don't have anything there. Like
Yes.
it's just one of those, you gotta get your, oh no, I'm gonna get yelled at for that. But when you have to like pull it with your fingers, I'm like,
Oh,
no,
it's the
this
worst.
is too challenging.
Yeah.
It's the worst. Yeah, no one needs that. So yeah, so just those small things, those are a huge impact.
Yeah.
And I mean, those would be the main things right there that I would.
Paint, light fixtures, and then doorknobs.
Doorknobs,
Yeah.
hardware.
Yeah.
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 I think
I
those are
love
pretty
that.
solid.
Okay, you kind of mentioned this with the lighting and the recess lighting of making a room appear or feel bigger. But if you were coming into a house, like say you're thinking about helping stage a house maybe for sale, and we're really going for that open, spacious concept that most of us love at this point, what would you suggest to the home buyer?
Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting. So there are certain things that actually you may not think would make the room feel bigger. So let's just say you're going into a home and you're like, I really want this room to be moody, but I don't know that I can paint the ceiling a dark color.
Yeah.
Or if you have like a dining room, let's say a dining
Yeah.
room. I say you paint that sucker all the way around. You paint every part of it, and that will give you the dramatic effect of that moody
Okay.
room. It will feel really big, even though you feel like you're putting a cap on it. You're not. It's gonna feel so saturated. It's
Okay.
gonna be awesome.
And does
So-
it matter with the colors? Or is it just in that situation you want to paint everything that color?
Yeah, in
Okay.
that scenario,
Yeah.
you're like looking for something moody. So
Okay.
we're talking like dark
Yeah.
paints, like dark blacks, real deep greens,
Yeah.
all of those kinds of things. So don't shy away from those things if you're trying to make a dining room feel moody and bigger.
Okay.
I would say other things to help a room feel bigger is making sure that the curtains, like the curtain panels, are as high as they can go, pretty
Okay.
much. So that brings your eye up when you're not cutting it right above a window.
Yeah.
You're really bringing
Elongating the
Yep, you're elongating it. Yes.
Okay.
Mirrors also help as well because they give the
Yeah.
illusion that the room is bigger. So those are really easy ways to make it feel
Is there
larger.
any type of color that does make the room feel better, bigger, or is it just how you're painting the room essentially with that color?
I think it's how you paint the room
Okay.
because I mean now naturally white is going to make it feel bigger because your eye is like expanding more
Yeah.
because it's taking in this brightness.
Right.
So it is going to naturally feel bigger that way, but don't shy away from a gorgeous moody dining room because you don't want it to be too small. So I think it really is how you paint it. So if you painted a dark color up to, the trim, and the trim is white and the trim is white down here, and then the ceiling's white.
Yeah,
it
you're
is
kind of
gonna-
like chopping it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's going to cut your eye off. So again, it's like thinking about when you're looking at something, you want your eye to go like all the way.
Yeah.
Almost like it's rolling into the back of your head.
Yeah.
Got
You
it.
want
Makes
it to
sense.
go all the way up and that you're not cutting the line of sight.
Yeah.
And so
Now, what about like area rugs or furniture size, things like that? How does that have an impact on what you're seeing?
yeah, so that's one of the biggest mistakes that I think is the size of the rug. A lot of people go too small on the rug because they don't want to spend the cost.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you need to bite
Spend
the
it,
bullet.
get
You got to
bigger
do
rug.
it. You got to do it because you really cut yourself short
Yeah.
when your rug's too short. You know, like
right.
you're creating imbalance when things aren't properly sized in
right.
the room. And those are things that, either you are already naturally good at or designers can come in and help you size those things with space planning and all of that kind of stuff. But
That's awesome.
but I would say that is one of the bigger things that I see is people going too small on the rug. Well, you're already spending a chunk of the cost, like you
Yeah.
might as well really invest in something you
Yeah.
really love and
Absolutely.
make it the right size. So
Okay, so you just touched on how to make a room feel larger,
Mm-hmm.
but what about like the reverse of that? What's some ways that you can make a room kind of feel a little bit more cozy
Mm-hmm.
if you have a really big space and it's like I don't know how to fill this and make it feel cozy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say a big one would be adding area rugs.
Okay.
That helps a lot. So let's say you have a really long living room. You know, what most people are thinking is like you are just going to put one set, like living room set in this long living room. Well, really what you can do is you can break it into 2 living spaces
Yeah.
that
Kind
can
of
help.
segment it.
Yeah, that can help the size feel purposed. So really, you know, let's say you have a couch and a set of chairs, and then you have another set of chairs and a
Yeah.
settee. Well, you can get a like a day bed bench, so it's like a really oversized bench, so that whoever sits on that could speak to this side of the room or that side of the room, and or like a tete-a-tete, which is like a little French. We'll go French again. A tete-a-tete, a head-to-head. It actually used to be like a gossip chair. I'm blowing your mind.
Oh,
It
I
actually
wish
like
the words you're saying.
I know. I wish I could visualize it, though. I don't know what it is.
It's really odd. So it'd be like if I were facing this way and she's facing that way, and we're arm to arm. And so we're talking, we're having a private conversation because it is like a gossip chair, essentially. So
Who
we
doesn't
can leave
love
the
one of
gossip
those?
out of it.
Yeah.
We can leave the gossip out of it, but still
where the
have the
phrase comes
same
from, yeah.
idea that it's a tete-a-tete. You're having a head-to-head, a private conversation that can speak to both of those spaces.
That's
But
really cool.
other ways I would say would be bringing in color, bringing in textures. I noticed a trend for myself with everything that I design. I have some element of like a Mongolian sheepskin in there because I love the texture. It's ridiculous.
Okay.
I love it. You can go faux, but you can also get real Mongolian sheepskin like pelts on Etsy and things like that.
Okay.
And even throwing those over a chair, layering it with another rug. All of those things bring in that cozy, warm type feeling. Even having texture in your drapery, like, like a linen texture. And so there's a lot of layering that happens, and that helps the room to have that cozy feeling. So
If you put big furniture in a small room, what does that do? / if you put small furniture in like in a larger room, like I talk about that because I feel like that's something that I see often where I'm like, this furniture is not the right
It goes
size.
back to what you were saying about
Yeah.
the space. Like it's symmetrical. It all matters. How right? So yeah, speak
Yeah.
to that a little bit.
So I would say for the furniture that's too big in a room, the analogy that came to my mind is like a kitchen sink that's filled with dishes. And you're just like, this makes me feel so stressed and crowded.
That
and,
is accurate.
And
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
I don't know that anyone that looks at dishes that's like, oh, I love this. I love a sink full of dishes, But
some people can ignore it though.
yeah,
that is
it's
shocking
true.
to
It
me.
is
I
true,
can't.
which my husband would say I can't ignore it. So just being honest. But so I would say that having too much in a space gives you that feeling of like chaos, and it's overwhelmed, and it's almost like this there's too much going on in here. And I am a maximalist, so I love a lot going on, but
okay.
too much going on is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And so to kind of keep from getting that chaotic feeling of too much in a space, choosing smaller items would be better in that sense. Now, too small of an items, I don't have an analogy for that, but it would just look like dollhouse furniture essentially. It's
Is there a way to know what's appropriate?
yeah, I mean
for the homeowner?
there really is. So knowing that, I would say you find the biggest rug size that you can get in a space that doesn't feel stupid.
Yeah.
I would go from there, and then also know like where is your walkway? Where is like the functionality of the home? Like where are you going to be walking through your furniture? And then knowing that you need like at least 24 inches at least to get through
Okay.
the furniture.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like you take some of those like hard stops of like, large rug, where's the walkways, and then you go from there.
Build from there.
Yeah.
I feel like this is so interesting, the interior design piece of this, because whenever I'm with my buyers walking through, a lot of times they'll be like, well, my sectional couch won't fit in there. And I'm like, well, and that's part of the expense of buying a house, right? A lot of
Yes.
times you have to
You
furnish
new
it.
furniture, yeah.
But I'm like, okay, but can you visualize maybe you don't have that sectional in there?
Right.
Maybe or like, so sometimes people come in with this like, but this is what I have, and I
Mm-hmm.
love hearing like, oh, but you could
Yeah.
throw a blanket over that to add texture.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes.
You can get
if people can get
creative.
creative, yeah,
Yes.
and a lot.
Yeah.
I see the difference in buyers and the way their brains work because
Mm-hmm.
some of them can come in and visualize, and some of them really cannot. So I always try to say, hey, try to keep your mind open, try to see what this could be,
Yeah.
because a lot of times you can do a little bit and it'll go a long way, and some of that's just like literally furniture or a
Yes.
plant. I mean, I'm like, wow, a succulent goes a long
Yeah.
way. Those little
It
guys,
does. It's the little
just
Yeah.
touches.
green, and then you feel you feel warm.
does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of the texture that you bring in is plants.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
How
a
do you
lot.
feel about a real plant versus a fake plant? Because I know a lot of people are like, I'm just going to kill it. And I'm like, well, do something because you need some greenery. But
Yeah.
do you feel like that makes a big difference visually? Like, obviously, you don't want a really cheap looking one, but like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that there are enough places out there that have great looking trees, great looking plants that if you're like, I absolutely cannot get a real plant.
I can't water it.
Yeah, there are places that you can purchase those things. Now, they may not be as cheap as you want them to be.
Yeah.
But again, it's like what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to accomplish something where you're like this room almost looks good? Or it's like, no, like I invested my money in good quality pieces that are going to last me longer than 5 years because I love this tree and it looks
Yeah.
fantastic.
Right.
And, so there's a lot of those things to consider as well that are like, just spend a little bit more, get something that's perfect instead of
Yeah.
almost just right.
And it's okay if
But-
it takes you time to do that too.
Yes.
Speaking to my own
Yes.
personality, like when I get in a new space, I'm like, I want to do everything right now.
Yeah.
But I'm like, especially if you're buying a house, most likely you're going to be there for years on end. So like take time to cultivate it
Yeah.
in the right way, like you're saying.
It's kind of the same with clothes, right? Like you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I can go to
Ross.
Forever 21 or Ross, and I can get like 6 shirts that I'm gonna wear once, and then they're gonna
Yeah.
throw away, and then you end up
Yes.
having to buy another one anyways.
Yeah.
By the time you could have just spent more money on one thing that you just reuse than like I bought the same thing 6 times, right?
Yep.
So
Yes.
quality over quantity.
Yes.
Every
yeah,
time.
Yeah.
But also
so
budget
true.
wisely with your money.
Yeah. And I
And
have
don't buy
a
these
fr-
things
Right.
before closing on the
Yeah.
house.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, don't
That's
put
true.
Let's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't put anything on a credit card and build up debt before you close on a house because that'll
Yeah.
mess up your home loan.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I do have one more thought. What do you do with wall decor? Art. I'm talking like tying everything together, sizing. That has always been my personal biggest struggle. So I'm asking selfishly right now. But I feel like other people kind of tend to have
Yeah.
that struggle to pull it just all together.
Yeah. So with art is so subjective. So it really is like what you really love. I wouldn't tell you though to go out and buy some weird abstract piece of art if you're just like, yeah, it's just something to throw on my walls. Like don't waste your money essentially.
Yeah.
And so I think one thing you have to kind of decide is, are you a maximalist or a minimalist? And so from there, you're like, okay, maximalists, they love art everywhere. They love gallery walls and like unusual places that you can hang art, which that's very much like how I am. I'm like, I have this weird nook that has like art on the sides and art in the back and a picture light. And, so that's, more what I'm bent towards is maximalist. And then minimalist, do you want to do one giant oversized piece of art, or you pair like a couple pieces of art with a picture light over it? And as far as like choosing the walls to do that on, some of that is just trial and error where you're holding up pieces and
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of trying to decide that way. But one thing is, even as a maximalist, I would say there are walls that need to breathe. And so like having negative space is really important so you don't come in like we were talking about with the overstuffed furniture,
Yeah.
like so you don't come in and you're like, oh my goodness, there's things everywhere and this actually is not maximalism, it's hoarding.
It feels
and
chaotic.
so
Feels chaotic.
yes.
Yeah.
And so really finding where you want the negative space to be is just as important as putting certain pieces on the wall. But I love pairing one large piece of artwork even with two pieces next to it, one going horizontal, one vertical, and adding a picture light. And even in like gallery walls, it doesn't have to just be picture frames or canvases with picture frames. Like you can add interesting elements of like a tassel thing or just certain things that are hangable, but I don't it's got to be hangable. So so that kind of also brings interest. So it's not just a wall of pictures, that it really is a wall that maybe you put a little small shelf with a candle on it, so it has a lot of depth even and interest. So I think, like I said, a lot of it is trial and error. Like, where do you want your negative space to be? And are you a maximalist or a minimalist? And you can be both. You could be,
Maybe in different
Maxman.
places.
A Maxman?
A Maxman. That's nothing. But, you could be like, I like it all or none, you know. So I think, just trial and error.
Is that just personal preference as far as the negative space goes? Or is there actually kind of science behind like layout or what your eye catches?
Yeah, I'm sure that there is science behind it. I don't know the science.
So good.
But I know that there are designers out there that absolutely know like the science behind those things, because I've heard about them. I just don't know like the verbiage of those things. But I would say, just like we were talking about with the line of sight, like as you're in a home, say you walk into the room and there's a wall right in front of you that could be really cool with something really dramatic on it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then there's a wall right to the side of it that really you could add something to it, but maybe it's better just to leave it clean and just negative space.
I think as a rule of thumb, I would say for just like I walk in so many homes and I see so much, and when I think it would be helpful for people to know to have that negative space, because like for instance, you walk in and there's the cross wall and it's like all the and I'm like and then
Thank
it
you,
gets time
Texas.
to sell.
That's a Texas.
But you almost don't even get the fact that it's cross. It loses
The value.
the power of what you're doing gets completely washed away.
Yes.
And I think you're using these terms minimalist and maximalist. Maximalist, is that how you say it? I think it's for a lot of people, it's better to know. Always try to have some type of negative space.
Yes.
Even if
no matter what.
either way, because you end up losing the value of what you're even trying to do because it gets just muddied,
Oh yeah. And if you're selling a home, you got to take down the cross wall.
Well, and then they have all these
Please do.
little holes in the wall. You basically have to retexture the whole wall because
I think it's worth it though
It is.
for most sellers
Oh,
to
yeah.
take that simple action.
Yes, for sure.
Not only because maybe the crosses and different beliefs of the individuals that are walking into your home, but just how they're going to feel spatially.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
That's
the
what
whole
they're
concept of
experiencing.
decluttering.
Yes,
Like in general, you're like, oh, you're getting ready for pictures. Take things off the countertops because it feels, and you have to live. But I think it should correlate with interior design too. Like you don't want to fill every
nook and
ounce,
cranny.
every nook and cranny with
Yeah, because it just feels congested and chaotic.
Yeah.
Even as someone, like I said, as a maximalist, like countertops.
Too
and,
much can be too much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I love that. I don't think I have any other personal deep questions that I need answered. But is there anything else that you kind of run into or you're wanting to speak to the audience as well? Of just like, hey, you can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that one of the things I feel like I'm really passionate about, and when I'm designing for a client, is like really understanding who that person is, where they come from, like the legacy that they've come from, and designing out of that, like the heritage that you come from. Like, is there a piece in your home that you don't really think about often, but you're like, oh, it's just a family heirloom, da 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 da, where you kind of dismiss it, where it's like, no, like, tap into those design elements, because that's going to be what makes your home feel curated to you, to where you come from, and all of those things. And I feel like lately, where trends have gone, and I love this, I love it and I don't love it. But let's say you could go to Target and you can purchase McGee and Co. You can purchase Hearth and Hand and all of those things, which they have done a great job of making those items accessible. But where maybe the first original one held significance, the rest of them have no significance.
They're just cookie cutters at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. And so instead of creating your home out of those cookie cutter elements, like, go on a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
Ask your mom or your grandma if they have something that they no longer want that's unique, and like a portrait of your great great grandfather, and it looks a little creepy, but it's still really cool. And
I love this, because I feel like what I find happens a lot of times is people just get really stuck.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, I don't know where to start. I'm not an interior designer. I don't know about the space. I don't know how to fill it. And then they just, instead of kind of digging in and getting personal with that, they just kind of go to Target and they're like, whoa, there's this,
they gave me X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they end up just grabbing stuff, and it doesn't feel, because you can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it when someone designed their home, whether it be a professional or someone just really took the time to be like, this is me, and I'm kind of putting this on display for me.
Yes.
Because it's your home,
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I
I
love that.
can even speak to that personally, because I'm very minimalistic
Yeah.
in my approach. But for those of you that are watching on YouTube, like, you can even kind of see on the mantle, like, I have things from Japan that my grandfather brought back like 30 years ago. There's I think Chelsea might be kind of sitting in front of it a little bit, but it's like an old, I don't know what you call, help me with that. Film, yeah, that I found at a garage sale in California.
Kodascope.
Is that what it's called?
Oh, okay.
That's what it says.
Yes. But I think that I tend to be more the person that's like, okay, I'm just going to go to Target and get the basic thing because it looks really pretty. But I have found that when I can add those special elements of this came from a family member or a really special moment, it means a lot more to me. So
I always do that too. The things I love, I'm like, where did you get this? And it's usually like, I was in Paris and I found and I'm like, oh, cool. I can't just go get that.
Yeah.
Shoot. But it's when it's tied to like a story, it's so cool. Like, I think it makes a difference. So.
Yeah. And even think about those jars, like that set. Other people may have sets like this accessible to them in their families' homes, but they've just been shoved on shelves that are covered in things and knickknacks and all those things
Behind the cross wall.
Yeah. Where it's like, well, now while it's on its own, because I already did notice this and I was like, oh, that's really cool, and I wasn't gonna address it because I didn't know if you just thrifted it or if it had meaning.
Yeah, it has
which is
meaning.
incredible. So because it's up there by itself, it's on display and it has a unique moment. And I think that that's just something really special to creating spaces that are curated for who you are and where you come from, and not just the cookie cutter, like, oh, this is,
I love the permission that you just gave everyone to not just be on trend, but to actually cultivate their home.
Yeah.
Which is the whole point of this podcast too, is like, let's actually build a place where you want to be.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I loved hearing just your heart behind what you do and even just the logistics of it all. We so appreciate you taking the time to come out and be on with us today. So where can people find you? Social media, what's your preferred method if someone's like, I need to reach out to this girl?
Yeah, so the best way to reach me is really through Instagram. You can shoot me a message. It's just my name, Chelsea Lynn Stevens.
EY or EA?
EA.
Oh.
Like this.
Because it's important.
It is important. We'll also put it in the show notes
Oh,
for
great.
everyone.
Okay,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So reach out to me on Instagram and I can shoot you my phone number. It's probably the easiest way to do
Love
so.
that.
So yeah.
Amazing.
Thank
Cool.
you. Yeah, thank you guys.